And we're off straight into game one. Once again, El Paladinos versus Crayon Gods. My name is Vox, and on the left-hand side of your scoreboard, we have Uji7 on Grok, Diago on Grover, Darkratos on Androxus, BrokenSlinky on Barrack, and Baconator253 on Ruckus.
And on the right-hand side for Crayon Gods, we've got Dracamaur on the Barrack, Xypo, let's say, on Grok. We've got LumpyEmu, love that name, on the Ruckus, Foxycon on that Fernando, and Vape Nation 97, Vape Nation on Cassie. So this should be a good game. What are you seeing at first, Vox, just in terms of these picks? What's standing out to you?
What's standing out to me is the build which Grok Uji7 is running, but in fact, let's just take a look at the flanking path which all of El Paladinos are taking. They're coming up right round behind everybody on the sides of the Crayon Gods, but Uji7 is running the card Lightning Rod 4, which is definitely not what we see as a usual pick. It allows, when your weapon hits an enemy, allows Chain Lightning to deal increased damage to all enemies around them, which is a very interesting card. Counter to the healing tome, or rather the healing rain card, which we usually see taken as a specialty card for most Groks.
Now, what we're seeing here is some insane point control. I mean, I see the standard that the attempt that they were trying to make, but Foxycon and Crayon Gods, they just got to the point first and just held it. The Barrack, the Grok totem, healing totem, the Fernando shield. I mean, Fernando's not a god we see picked in this meta, as we were discussing before, but it seemed to work out for them in that instance there.
Absolutely. They're playing this point control Fernando rather than the backline assassin or bruiser that we have seen played previously. And what you got to remember is that when you have Grok, Barrack, and Fernando all set up on a capture point, it is very difficult to get them off. You've got the healing totem. You've got two shields for when one goes down. Diago in the backline, though, is looking heavily at Xypo, taking some damage whilst they do so, but that Grok is in a lot of danger.
Absolutely. And looks like he's almost going down. You see Grover trying to get over. Diago goes down. LumpyEmu gets the kill. And BrokenSlinky up there trying to support with the higher ground. That elevation, obviously so important for those who aren't familiar with these types of games. Choke points, higher elevation, getting these types of advantages can make all the difference whether your push is successful or not. And looks like this is going to be a successful one right now. There's about 2 minutes and they've got maybe 3 feet to go.
Absolutely, it's very close into the base. In fact, Xypo popping their Tempest there, wasting an ultimate perhaps when the payload is very close to the first capture point and then gets picked off immediately. Baconator picking up LumpyEmu and BrokenSlinky picking up Vape Nation. Another kill on the side of El Paladinos, and they mount a successful defense. What should be noted is that El Paladinos can't now afford to leave this payload alone with how close it is to their base. If it's left alone just for a few seconds, there's backdoor potential here where a member of Crayon Gods could sneak in unnoticed around the side and actually push that payload in without being picked up upon.
And that's really important to know. What happened is because they did not push well enough, they're in a bad position. Their hand is forced. They know they have to get near this thing. And so with the area pressure of the Grok Chain Lightning, especially with the shields from the Fernando and the Barrack pressure from the turret, they know exactly where these teammates are going to be, and they can pressure that area very well. But it looks like a good hold is still coming out. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get past this. What's not working with this push? They're 5 feet away, but they can't get through. What's going on, Vox?
Well, what's most peculiar to me is actually that ultimates are being burned here rather than being saved for the next capture point, which is what we've seen happen in most capture points played in all of the games so far. Now, the important thing to remember is that ult charge does carry over from one round to the next. However, if you change deck, it is reset. Taking a quick look at the decks on the defending team, as we've seen stuff like Tempest come out, we've seen the Barrack ultimate come out, and there's potential there that these ultimates are being wasted, or rather being utilized, in order for champions to actually change their deck and really not lose anything in that situation. But the push comes through from Foxycon as Foxycon that Fernando back once again on the payload, a staple of the pure payload game mode. Oh, and Xypo with a Tempest as well, looking to wipe out some of the members of El Paladinos here in this last defense, but is wiped out in return.
Absolute. Oh my gosh. And they're trying to get it. They're Grover's on an 11 streak right now. Vape Nation, I want to point that out. It was standing in the back, tried to come through this corridor here, but came way too slow and didn't have enough damage. Fernando's not going to be able to do it with that shield up. Of course, one of the tankier characters because of that shield, but not mobile and can't do a lot of damage while that's happening. And that's a successful defense. The thing that stood out for me was that Cassie not being able, Vape Nation not being able to support her team with the damage that she's supposed to be there for, and therefore not a successful push.
As we said previously, choke points are really the major obstacle for the attacking team on payload to really push through. And in order to do so, the best way to break a choke point is not go directly through the main choke, as that's where all the defenses will be set up, but to flank around from the side. I mean, at that point, Crayon Gods did have high ground control. They could have come up and over into the backside of El Paladinos base and potentially broken that hold, but they didn't. And now, as we proceed into the next round, we see a lot of Master Ridings come out on the side of El Paladinos, potentially looking for this backdoor flank again, which didn't actually pay off for them the first time, but instead they're taking a more direct route to the point. It's a 5-on-5 point fight on the capture point, breaks out immediately.
Nice blast shot from Cassie there. Vape Nation making himself known immediately in game, but the point is still being contested heavily by El Paladinos. They want to win this one here. They did not capture the last one. Foxycon is the last one available. He looks like he's going to go down. It's 5 against Fernando. Oh man, baby. If you had an Ares ult and Smite, you might have been able to do something here, but this is Paladins and you need to run because you've got nothing going on. Diago's on a 17 streak. Get out of town, and El Paladinos look like they may capture this next point.
Indeed, the respawns are coming through, but it's going to take a little while for... the respawns weren't in time. It looks like the kills were staggered enough for El Paladinos actually to take that capture point with no contest after the initial fight. LumpyEmu does pop an ultimate in the backside, but Androxus reversals it all immediately and reflects that damage back into LumpyEmu, and who's picked up for a kill.
Now, what do you think about that? See, because it looked to me that Ruckus kind of went for a lost cause there. I mean, the payload was, the point was captured. I don't think they were going to make it. And what ended up happening was they kind of, dropped that ult and died relatively quickly. Do you think that was a good use of that? What would you like to see different there?
The ult don't come up around behind them. I think that they had a good positioning to perhaps get on the point if they're a few seconds faster and maybe contest that and allow their team to get back into the area, but they were just too slow about it. Instead of wasting the ultimate there, I would have actually liked them to see them retreat, as they were in a very bad spot, 1 versus 4, 1 versus 5. Retreat back round to the rest of their team and give them support to prevent El Paladinos from pushing through this choke point. But as we can see, Crayon Gods are holding well here right now.
Very well. Very well. And Fernando up in front, doing the tattle tactic, as we might want to call it, just going in front and basically delaying, not trying to get any kills, just pushing in front of that payload, in front of the choke point, making it difficult for the enemy team, El Paladinos, to push that payload any further because they've got to deal with Fernando. They can't leave him alone. And so he's just buying time for his team to really sit in that choke point and just fire on them without having any worry of taking fire behind them.
The rock assault, which we saw previously from Baconator, did actually allow that double-time turret setup to be broken by El Paladinos, pushing through the first major choke point, approaching the second one. Let's take a quick look at Barrack's build on the side of Crayon Gods, and we can see that Barrack is actually running Double Time 4 and Forged Ally 4. Double Time 4, of course, allows you to have 2 turrets out at once and reduces the cooldown of turret by 40%, as well as Forged Ally 4, increasing your turret's health by 700. So if the Crayon Gods get this turret setup in place, they have an incredibly tanky turret setup to really lock down choke points, and it's proven quite effective up until now. Only a minute left on the clock, and will El Paladinos be able to mount this offensive and push the payload all the way into the base?
That's the question. This hold is looking pretty good. Foxycon with a lot of pressure on a Baconator. The Fernando pick looking to be effective in their strategy, just giving the team some space and some time, especially some extra pressure. And not only that, the extra shield. Notice how he's in front of that turret right now, Vox. He's basically allowing an extra shield to be available not only to where their teammates are, but for where those turrets are, which is 2 extra shots that could be potentially supporting them in this push. Or in
Not
this
just
defense,
that, I think that's why we saw the first initial point control go heavily in the favor of Crayon Gods, because he had a double turret set up on the point already. But not just that, the Fernando's out in the front, shielding his teammates when the barricade goes down from Barrack, but also shielding the turrets, shielding the healing totem from Grok, keeping everybody who might take a little bit of poke actually up in fairly full health. But Xypo pops a Tempest ultimate, doesn't actually get any kills off that. No, it does pick up BrokenSlinky, but now it's Diago. He's picked up by Xypo for a double kill there. UG7, the Grok left on the payload, but the siege engine has been destroyed. The payload has been defended successfully, and the score is 1-1.
And so we've seen two different stories, right? We've seen the aggressiveness, the early capture from both teams, and the ability to hold, and then again the ability for both teams to adjust and hold very well on their defenses. I'm seeing that both team comps are working. They're just not working consistently. So I think part of it is looking at, I don't know if you would agree, is just getting this game plan in a more consistent fashion and executing it rather than kind of having it work one point and then not working on the payload.
Absolutely. El Paladinos do jump straight onto the capture point. However, despite the Master Ridings, don't actually have the speed advantage. Flamethrower turret and the Dome Shield does come up from the side of Crayon God, and good grief, Crayon Gods with a Rock Assault as well force El Paladinos right back, picking up a lot of kills. Looks like almost all members of El Paladinos have been wiped out. BrokenSlinky contesting the capture point for a second there, but that turret just dealing way too much damage for him to deal with.
Yeah, and he had his ultimate up as well. And for those who don't know, and throughout the day, we'll be discussing these gods. So I know a lot of you may be new Paladins, you may know all of these champions, you may not know their abilities. We'll be talking about them. I know it's kind of second language to us, and we're mentioning a lot of things quickly, but we will be going over more information. That Barrack ultimate there is something we will discuss, and the Grok ultimate coming out now and proving effective in the slight. Uji7 gets a kill on the Xypo, but LumpyEmu takes out Uji7 shortly thereafter, and unfortunately, they cannot contest this payload. Now they're going to have to defend.
Sort of see the coordination coming out there. If you take a look at Baconator's build, Baconator 253 on the Ruckus pick is running a projector build, which allows him to transfer the effects, including the shield of emitter, onto teammates. Now, one important thing to note about Tempest, Grok's ultimate, it randomly strikes 2 enemies within the set radius of its area of effect every couple of times a second. Maybe it's once every 0.7 seconds off the top of my head. Could be wrong about that, but it's for 350 damage per hit. So it's that 750 damage overall on 2 targets per tick.
Right.
Because Grok can't actually use any abilities during this time, Grok is an instant and an immediate target to be taken out. But hold that thought, as the payload all the while is being pushed deep into El Paladinos base. Nobody's going to contest. It's up to the Androxus on the side of El Paladinos to actually stop the payload, as really it just pushed itself all the way to, almost all the way to completion.
Yeah, and that is honestly an issue there with doing the right thing in the wrong way. What happened was they didn't have somebody on the payload to stop the push. Diago goes over and gets a double kill there with his ultimate, that Grover swinging axe. Always a scary sight to see a tree carrying an axe. But anyways, they didn't have anyone stopping the payload, so they got the kills, but the objective wasn't secured, and they did all the right things. They just didn't do it in the right way, unfortunately.
Oh, look at the push! Look at the push! The payload's almost complete. Members of El Paladinos did step off the capture point for just a moment. There is a Barrack ult in favor of El Paladinos on the capture point right now, but LumpyEmu pops up the Rock Assault, and on the backside, Foxycon popping the Fernando ultimate keeps their teammates alive for just a second. It's Dracamaur against the world, but the point was in
almost
favor
there
just for a moment in numbers of Crayon Gods, and as reinforcements come through from Dracamaur, it might still swing in their favor, but Uchi7 with a huge Tempest does actually pick up Xypo there. Dracamaur getting very low is picked up by Baconator, and now Foxycon is forced to retreat. There's still 50 seconds on the clock, though. There still is completion potential and conversion potential of this payload on the side of Crayon Gods.
Yeah, this is very important right now for Crayon Gods. What I want to see from them is a regroup. They're doing the smart thing. LumpyEmu's low. He's like, okay, I could go in right now. Yeah, I could try and, throw some guns. I could emitter, but I've only got 4 of my teammates here. There's 32 seconds. We only got time for 1 push. No need to rush this. Let's all go in at a time, and that's what we're seeing right now. They're doing it. They're going in coordinated. The Foxycon pops his shield for the Fernando. He's shielding the turrets. The healing totem is in the background. Uji7 is almost going down. He's very low, and Vape Nation trying to get the damage, but she goes down. Darkratos gets the kill onto her, and BrokenSlinky as well. Foxycon, however, does take Diago down, and it looks like there's only 7 seconds left. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it, Vox.
They may well be able to. The numbers advantage is actually in favor of Crayon Gods right now, but as the respawn from Diago comes back, that shield goes up. There's a Grover ult coming out from Diago, bringing Dracamaur very low. Foxycon not really taking too much damage from that, and does actually answer back in spades. The turret from Dracamaur picking up a kill in that situation, I think. But the numbers advantage is once again back in favor of El Paladinos. All members very low, though. Foxycon is still alive throughout all this, picks up a health drop, regens some health, and a shield back up, protecting his team. The payload is almost at completion. It is in 6 seconds of overtime still. Can't believe the game's still going on.
I cannot believe this. Uji7, what has this guy got? 9 lives? I mean, I thought Grok was a shaman, not a cat. This is ridiculous. He stayed alive for like 20 seconds on that payload, stopping it himself, but they finally, Crayon Gods, get the push. That was nice. That was nice to see. What an effort, what a defense, what an offense there. That was a very exciting point. Hats off to both teams there on that one, honestly. I thought they both performed well.
For them to keep that in overtime for as long as they did, fantastic work from both teams. I mean, the defense was good, but not quite good enough. Did see Darkratos on that Androxus jump up into the air, pop a Cursed Arm, which is the ultimate, granting him 4 explosive shots in his revolver, and taking out 2 members of of the enemy team during that ultimate, but that was after the round ended. Too little, too late. And that ultimate, more importantly, is going to be down for the next engagement. Once again, the flanking strategy from El Paladinos coming out, though, and coming around the backside of Crayon Gods, but this didn't work last time. Let's see if it's successful now.
Yeah, the one thing I don't agree with there is Cassie was their front line. Vape Nation got taken out immediately there. And now Foxycon is forced to retreat. The problem with this is that now they've got a lot less damage because of that sniper and that blast shot. She didn't even get a blast shot off. So now they're forced to retreat. Everything was right. They got there first, but the staggering of their positioning was incorrect. And that's going to allow El Paladinos to most likely secure this point. We'll see what happens, but that just didn't look like the right positioning to me, Vox. You know, where you want to keep Cassie? She's your long range sniper. Where do you want to ideally have her in your team?
Well, if you take a quick look, as the payload and the capture point has actually been captured by El Paladinos this time, we should make a quick note that the capture points on the very top side of the spectator UI, where you see 3 blue points and 2 red points, those are actually reversed. That is a bug with the spectator. Right. We are using a very early alpha version of it, and as a result, bugs like this are sort of to be expected. So that's 3 capture points, or 3 points out of 5 currently in favor of Crayon Gods and 2 in favor of El Paladinos. Back to your question, though, Rain Day. In response to where you'd position Cassie, that little wooden shelter or that little wooden platform where she was earlier, it's not a bad point, but it's only useful if she knows where the entire enemy team is.
Right.
Perhaps further up on the backline or further up in the high ground around the ice caves would have been more useful, up in those corridors where she could have had a full view of everybody coming up to try and flank her.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe she was in the right spot, but just didn't expect them to come that route. That could have been what was going on in Vape's mind. Just thinking, you know, hey, I'm going to get here. I'm going to get the high ground. I've got a good vantage point here. I can see the point. And then all of a sudden she gets run over by a 5-man, train coming in, which is El Paladinos. And unfortunately, it lost them the point, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I think one important thing to note about that last point is that El Paladinos was actually a man up during that last capture point. I mean, Crayon Gods was missing a member. There was only 4 people available. I don't know if that's because somebody timed out. Maybe their controls stopped working. But they did have the disadvantage there, man disadvantage. You can see that the payload has almost been pushed to completion, and that is actually a defense failed, a capture success, a conversion success for El Paladinos, and they even up the score 3-3.
And so now one of the things I was a little curious about when I first started playing this mode, right, was that you get a point for capturing the point. Correct. So you get a point there. So they got that point. They were down by 2 points here. El Paladinos, they've tied the game. The second point comes from pushing the payload successfully and having that convert. Now, if you're the defensive team, what happens is you don't get a point even if you defend successfully. And that is one of the things that people may not be thinking, oh, that was a successful defense. Why didn't the points change? They won that round. Well, the key is when you win the capture point, you have the option for 2 points. And basically the defensive team, they have the option to stop you, not get another one. So it's very important, this capture point leads into everything.
Oh, Darkratos pops the Accursed Arm ult there, looks to dish some damage out onto the dome shield placed by Crayon Gods, but instead turns their sight onto the Cassie in the backline, who is evaporated. Lots of ultimates coming out onto the capture point, but Foxycon, once again, the only member of Crayon Gods left alive, as the combination is just too strong from the side of El Paladinos. One thing that I like to make note of is that the dome shield on the side of Crayon Gods did go down first. Tempest came out, clearing out the flamethrower turret, and as soon as that dome shield disappeared on the side of Crayon Gods, it was popped down in response by El Paladinos, and then dome shield versus no dome shield with players already weakened from the damage coming out from Grok's Tempest ultimate. I mean, it's an easy battle to see the victors of.
Yeah, dome shield versus no dome shield. I'll take dome shield. In my opinion, as they now convert and try to start pushing this payload. So, okay, you're Foxycon. You're Crayon Gods, right? You're right. The gods of crayons. What do you do right now? What's the point? You're about to lose this game. What's your strategy?
This is the defense point for Crayon Gods. If this payload is pushed to completion, then that is game 1 of this best of 3 set lost for them, and they'll be looking at going straight into the next game. They need to mount a successful defense, but they don't just need to mount a successful defense. They need to plan out for the next capture point, because if Crayon Gods lose this next capture point, even with a successful defense, that they do once again lose the game. Foxycon is wiped out just there by Diago. Can't get away from that Grover with Fatalis. Fatalis, of course, the specialty card of Grover, increasing your movement speed and attack when you hit an enemy by 30%, and you attack 40% faster. So very difficult for Fernando as a sort of a slow, clumsy target to run away from. Payload all the while pushing through, but the defense seems to be holding just for a moment as Foxycon has respawned. So Crayon Gods really need to look to make this defense and change something up in their point control tactics.
Yeah, there's a lot. It looks like somehow El Paladinos are getting the better of Crayon Gods here in just their tactics, not only regarding the point, but again, we've seen this defense happen before. It wouldn't be surprising to me if they held a strong defense here. They've got the Grok healing totem, but Daigo's ultimate is too effective at this point, and taking down to, oh my god, a triple kill goes down, and that's it. All she wrote. Can't mount that defense like last time. And unfortunately for Crayon Gods, and fortunately for El Paladinos, they take game 1 of this 3-game set.
They do indeed. One thing I'd like to mention about that last capture, that last payload conversion, is that El Paladinos, with the point advantage, used their ultimates instead of saving them for the next capture point. They had the opportunity to do so because all they needed to win was that payload conversion. Conversely, Crayon Gods were at a disadvantage then for the next capture point. If they use their ultimates there, they can't really afford to do so because that puts them at a disadvantage on the capture point. But if they don't use their ultimates, they could have potentially lost the round as they did. Taking a quick look at the scoreboard before we go any further. Pretty even damage across the board. Anything you're actually taking out from that rain day? Looking specifically at Vape Nation on Cassie, only 34k player damage that game.
Well, that's the one thing that stood out to me all game, and I mentioned it to you, Vox. Cassie is the damage dealer, right? You have Cassie in your lineup because she deals damage from afar. She can snipe targets. She can make it easier for players to get in because that long-range pressure applies a short-range buffer zone where you can be in there and doing a little bit of damage with them, dealing with that high Cassie pressure, and it wasn't there this game. I think Crayon Gods are going to have to change that up, either change that pickup, put Vape Nation onto a more comfortable character. Maybe he just had a bad game. It's the first game of this tournament today, so maybe it's just nervous jitters. But we're gonna have to see some more damaging Cassie play. And the other thing that stood out for me, Grover, Diago, 93,000 damage, top damage. Have you seen this from a Grover usually?
Not often, as Grover is a big bulky target. They've got a very big hitbox, and they should be prioritized. I mean, they devastate your backline if they get into there. It's like Buck from a few patches back, who jump in, kill a few people, jump out again to safety. I mean, if you see Grover, you have to prioritize them because not only are they a big target with no shield and really no easy way to get away, no escape if they use their vine to engage on people, but if you don't deal with them then and there, they will just take out your team one by one. I think really one thing that I'd also like to see is check out LumpyEmu on this Ruckus here. You hover over his specialty card. It's Proximity 4, dealing up to plus 32% damage to close targets, dealing more the closer they are to you. Comparing that to the Projector card, which Baconator ran, I mean, you've got this Cassie who's can potentially become a hyper carry in certain engagements, but they have no protection. Yes, you've got barricades, but Cassie was never behind them. You've got a Fernando shield, but Cassie was always off to the side. If perhaps they grouped up with LumpyEmu and ran that projector build, you could keep the Cassie alive and win out some more of these engagements. But with that all said and done, let's go into game 2 in just a moment and see if El Paladinos will take this as a 2-0 or if Crayon Gods can come back from the brink and make this go to a game 3. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody, for Game 2 of this best-of-3 set. The teams are El Paladinos versus Crayon Gods. My name is Vox, and on the left-hand side of your scoreboard, we have El Paladinos, UG7, BrokenSlinky, Diago, as I have been corrected for the pronunciation, Baconator, and Darkratos, on Grok, Barrack, Grover, Ruckus, and Androxus, respectively.
And on the side of Crayon Gods, the gods of crayons, we've got Dracamaur on Barrack, Xypo on Grok, Foxycon on the Fernando, Vape Nation 97 on the Cassie, and LumpyEmu doing that LumpyEmu thing on Ruckus as they head to that middle capture point. And we got to see a good engagement coming up here, Vox. What do you anticipate from these two teams now after the changes from game 1?
Well, I'm looking at the builds coming out real quick as we see that it is the Crayon Gods having immediate pressure on the point, although Baconator picks up a kill for El Paladinos. I'm looking at the builds and I don't actually see any changes. It appears to be a full-on salty runback, at least in terms of specialty cards. And now El Paladinos beginning to gain back control of this capture point. Darkratos in a very awkward position, though. Baconator in a lot of trouble. The barricade from BrokenSlinky does help keep people safe, as Diago just runs everybody down as this Grover.
Now that's something so good to mention. Okay, the first kill, right? They had pressure. Crayon Gods get there. They have the pressure. They've got almost halfway to the point. but they lose someone. They go down a man. And what that does immediately is turns the fight into the El Paladinos' favor, and then they're able to wipe the entire enemy team and then capture this point, looks like, with their full team. The early advantage doesn't matter. It's not the battle, it's the war on these capture points, and it looks like El Paladinos played that one right.
Absolutely, they did indeed. El Paladinos do take the first point of this game too. On the right-hand side of the very top of your spectator UI, as we have mentioned before, despite El Paladinos being the team in blue on screen, they do have the red capture points at the top of your screen. A little confusing, I know, but it's an alpha version of the spectator client, and little things like this are sort of to be expected. Now the push comes through with the payload, El Paladinos starting to push through this first main choke point from the middle igloo point as Baconator goes up top to grab some high ground, drops down, trying to take out Dracamaur, but does actually get killed by LumpyEmu there, picking up a kill, and the payload has been stalled right at the end of this bottleneck choke point.
Now they're in. BrokenSlinky and them are in this little tunnel. Is this some kind of strategy? Just basically saying, okay, we're going to pop out and try and kill you? LumpyEmu seems to be getting the effects of that. Or are they just buying time, waiting for their teammates to come out? You think that was an offensive tactic, or just, hey, let me get out of this crossfire right now?
I think it might have been, let's get out and heal up for a second. As we do see UG up top on the Grok, might have been able to place a healing totem for their team. And then, as you said before, it is a great surprise tactic. You can pop out of nowhere from that little tunnel and surprise people like a jack-in-the-box. But Foxycon actually soloing down Diago in the backline. That's actually the Fernando taking out Grover, something we don't often see happen, as Grover is often the one who has the advantage over Fernando. Fernando being largely immobile, does have a shield but no offensive abilities, whilst that shield is in use despite otherwise than his charge, is often run down by Grover. But did just hear a Grok ult go a Ruckus ult go off for a moment.
A Ruckus ult, yeah, that Hexafire doing a ton of damage, and Ruckus is on a Baconator on a 4 streak, and the man I want to talk about here is UG on a 8 streak right now. 8 kills uncontested, moves into that Ghost Walk to stay near that payload. Why is that Ghost Walk so important, especially in that payload push, Fox? I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but explain to the viewers why having that specific ability is so devastating sometimes for pushing that payload.
Well, for those of you at home who aren't familiar with Ghost Walk places Grok into an invulnerable state. Grok can't be damaged whilst in this state, but also can't actually do any damage or use any other abilities. You do gain a slight movement speed buff, and there are cards which also decrease the cooldown of Ghost Walk as well as increase its duration. Don't see any of those actually in use, just taking a quick look at UG's card. No, we do see Phantom there. So Phantom 2 increasing the duration of Ghost Walk by 2 seconds. So during this time on Ghost Walk, you can actually still contest or push the payload, and as a result, as a Grok stuck on the payload, you can survive a lot of incoming damage by combining the effects of your healing totem and Ghost Walk when they are off cooldown to keep on pushing that payload through long-range enemy fire, or contest it at short distance at the in a large-dish effort to stop it from being pushed to completion.
Yeah, and you can see the effectiveness there in just buying that time. But it looks like, oh my gosh, they're in overtime. It's still here. It is very close. The Ghost Walk coming to effect, allowing UG to stay alive, but not able to stay near the point because that Ghost Walk is off cooldown, and that's a successful defense coming up for the Crayon Gods. LumpyEmu, Foxycon, and squad do defend the point, and that keeps them from going 2-0 down. I know they did not want to start this way, but you got to say they did the best of what they had and defended successfully, even with that Grok in that Ghost Walk form. I guess kind of
burn cards, by the way.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, it's a good time.
We're about to get into the next round coming up soon. We see 5 Master Ridings coming out for the side of El Paladinos, which we've seen numerous times before. There's a few different burn cards coming out on the side, including notably a couple of different Havens on the side of the Crayon Gods, but the Master Ridings will not only allow El Paladinos to get to the point before Crayon Gods, but also to return to the point really quickly once dead, allowing them to potentially get back on and retake a capture point if it's lost initially, as the Crayon Gods once again are early to the capture point.
That doesn't make any sense to me. How were Crayon Gods all early, and Foxycon and Baconator and everyone on El Paladinos had Master Ridings? I don't understand how that took place. Does that make sense to you?
It sort of does with the flank path, which El Paladinos took, and you can see El Paladinos picking up kills left and right here, starting to regain control over this catch point. It has been contested by Foxycon, but Foxycon actually pops their ultimate, keeping themselves alive and not allowing their health to drop under 1,000, I think. whilst they have full health. A bit of a misplay there, a bit of a waste of an ultimate, especially since that also applies to other teammates. And now point control is fully back in favor of El Paladinos, having wrested it from them. I think the reason that they didn't get initially to the point before Crayon Gods is because they took a very long flank path to come up behind on the backside, potentially looking to pick off Vape Nation, who you remarked was picked off very early in most team fights previously.
But now look at Vape. Look at Vape. Look at that. Look at that spot.
ground.
That's a great spot. Unfortunately, the team goes down, but that's the kind of spot that we probably want to be seeing Vape in more often.
Absolutely. That's the perfect positioning for a Cassie, is from that point you're able to deal damage to enemies, not only approaching the capture point, on the capture point, but also looking to flank or assassinate you coming from both sides. As long as Cassie has a method of escape, and she should always have an escape plan in your head when playing Paladins. And for that, it's rolled directly off down onto the capture point, away from enemy teammates, potentially coming up to flank her. Right.
And now, even though they didn't get to the point first, El Paladinos captures the point, and they're now pushing the payload. And now, say they wipe. What is that Master Riding burn card going to do? Even if they wipe, like you're looking. Okay, they didn't get to the payload, so wow, that was a waste. Is it really a waste? Because they can respawn and get to that payload a lot faster now because they've all got that 20% extra movement speed on their mount.
It's absolutely not a waste in my books. It's one of the most useful burn cards there is. Only costing 100 does allow you to mount up and, well, not to mount up faster, but to travel faster whilst mounted.
Right.
So once you're mounted, coming from your spawn point, you can reach your objective, whether it's payload or capture point, much faster than the enemy team. And it seems to be working out okay for them, but as ultimates come out and a dome shield comes out on the side of Crayon Gods, the payload has been stalled just past this initial choke point.
Yep. Yeah, they want to push it back into this little cavern. It looks like they want to keep it there. This is the open space where they don't want to allow a push. But Barracks Turret's right here. And again, we've talked about it. The Fernando, not a usual pick, right, in this meta. People considering him not the best champion, but he's hiding in the bushes now, and he's got that shield ready. You better believe it's there to protect not only his teammates, but those turrets. Doing that double time damage, that is a huge part of their strategy. You can guarantee Barrett going with that build is really wanting those turrets to stay alive and do the damage. Now, look at this group up. Fox, what's about to happen? What's going on?
Well, we can see the emitter come out. We can also see Yuji popping Tempest there. Immediately the health is dropped, and there's a rock assault coming out from LumpyEmu as well in response, though. And Crayon Gods look like they're going to hold as Diago is actually taken out. The Grover wiped out immediately. Yuji's still alive in the backline. Darkratos forced right out of this fight. A lot of damage coming out from this double-time turret slightly, and Vape Nation on that Cassie above. The payload is actually now being pushed further and further towards completion by Yuji, and El Paladinos appear to have taken control of this fight, but as Xypo pops Tempest once again, wipes out Yuji, it's back in favor of Crayon Gods.
Oh man, that was great. The Hexafire came out from the Ruckus. That's Ruckus's ultimate, where he gets I think 20 rocket launchers added onto him or something. No, I think it's 2.
Feels like it.
It feels like it, right? Especially if you're a and you just get taken down point blank with all of that damage. He got eliminated from the game, and basically that ambush did not work. But the emitter popped there onto the Ruckus. He pops his Hexafire in return, saying, I got Hexafire too, buddy. Taking out LumpyEmu, and now Foxycon's in trouble. He's got no support from his damage dealers. He pops his shield after, of course, getting that card, allowing him to dash and get an extra shield, and now the payload needs to be pushed. There's only 6 seconds left. What's going to go down? Dracamaur goes down. Darkratos gets a double kill, but Xypo picks up Diago. They don't have that frontline Grover pressure. Xypo's still there, and the defense has failed, and oh my goodness gracious, El Paladinos looking strong right now and in command of this game.
Absolutely. 3 points to 0. El Paladinos up against Crayon Gods. During that last push, what you're noticing is that Ruckus goes in. Ruckus spearheads this push on the side of El Paladinos, pops emitter. That shields all of the teammates with the effects of projector, and then from there the entire team collapses and really forces and focuses on target prioritization as well. You see Hexafire came out to try and knock down some of the shields on this Fernando, turn them into just a walking target rather than a barricade for their team. And, it worked out quite successfully. Now with only 2 points left for El Paladinos to take this series or take this set as a sweep, it's up to Crayon Gods to really mount a successful defense and actually start taking points back off them.
And I absolutely agree. Again, with the burn cards, you're seeing a total set of Master Riding come out onto the squads of El Paladino. So everyone there is going to have that extra movement speed. And again, that did help them in being able to get back that last round for the push. But let's see, the contest is going on. What do they need to do here? El Paladino is trying to get it back, but Foxycon gets taken out. Is there a way to salvage this?
Ooh, it's going to be salvaged on the respawns, I would say, as many ultimates have been burned on the side of El Paladinos. I've definitely seen a dome shield down on BrokenSlinky, actually taken out by a snipe shot. One of those Cassie arrows coming up from Vape Nation, but whilst Vape Nation's actually focusing on that, he's still got a teammate on the point. I think that was Yuji there, standing in their healing totem, just healing up, and actually captures the entire capture point. So conversely with that point, what we saw previously is El Paladinos taking advantage of that 5-man master riding composition, sneaking up behind the enemy team, coming from where they least expect them. That time, they just went straight to the point. And Crayon Gods, who were sort of covering their backs in that engagement, waiting for somebody to pop out of nowhere behind them, didn't go directly onto the capture point, weren't there in enough time, and a defensive barrier was already set up on point by the time that the Crayon Gods actually got there. Xypo popping the Tempest, but it's not effective. It doesn't really deal any damage to anybody. It does pick up Diago, who is trying to disrupt the backline of Crayon Gods, but that's it.
Right. And that's what we'll see in other higher level competitive play. I mean, you look at Smite, another game by Hi-Rez Studios. They're probably their most popular game, the game I have my YouTube channel based on, Rain Day Gaming. And you look at the competitive aspect, and it's not just tactics. It's not just strategy. It's strategy compared to the strategy they're going to run, compared to the strategy you want to run in counter to that strategy. So it's anticipating what a player is going to do, what a team's going to do, and trying to counter that. And sometimes that just means you don't get straight onto the point because you think they might flank you, and you lose a chance to just get some contest onto the objective that you really needed to be on. And that, I think, was Crayon Gods' problem.
Degree of mind games that goes on. It's sort of, you could say like chess to a degree, although it's really not. But there is a degree of mind games that goes on in here. You have to outpredict and outthink your opponents through potential flank opportunities and flank pathways. Crayon Gods did hold for quite a while there, but actually Yuji picking up a kill on the backside. Diago going in deep with the Grover looks to turn their attention to Xypo now, and Dracamaur, as Dracamaur comes in, places down a turret and places down a barricade. But that initial choke point coming off the mines point has now been broken. There's a minute left on the clock for El Paladinos, but they seem to have broken through the major defenses of Crayon Gods here. But hold that thought as Dracamaur does pop down the flamethrower turret and the dome shield, and damage is now pouring out onto Diago and Yuji, who are forced away.
And here's the other issue I saw, and it's looking a little bit like it's going El Paladinos' way. Vape Nation soloed up top by BrokenSlinky, Barrick, and Cassie. I don't know if you saw this. We're having a one-on-one fight, and Barrick got the better of Cassie without any shields, without any turrets, just 1v1. Yo, 1v1 me, bro. And he took it. He took it, and that's a big play. That allowed Cassie to not add the damage onto the main push, and it could be the reason why this payload is almost being converted. But a nice hold here. LumpyEmu coming out. Baconator, he's not going to be able to do anything about this. He's going to be forced to retreat, or he's going to be... Oh, there he goes. He's dead. Back to the junkyard. Back to the scrapyard, I guess.
Absolutely. Baconator getting gobbled up right there. Diago is back with Yuji alongside, places down a healing totem. Potentially, no, it's a Tempest coming out from Yuji, looking to clean up this team. LumpyEmu likely to go down here. Xypo actually immuning. No, LumpyEmu stays alive. Still alive throughout all that chain lightning damage. Now Xypo with a counter Tempest wipes out Mon. Wipes out, almost getting the kill into BrokenSlinky as well. Baconator, the last line of defense, has to push this into overtime, but they're not quite close enough. Defense is successful on the side of Crayon Gods. El Paladinos are forced to a round 5.
I gotta say, I'm surprised they held. I am surprised they held. This is the chance. This means everything right here. You got to win this capture point or the game is over. Foxycon and crew have to do something different. Ideal scenario, you're Foxycon. What are you telling your team right now? What do you have to do to win this point?
They've got a couple of different strategies which they can use to come up to the capture point. It really depends on which capture point it is. We're going to see that pop up in 5 seconds. Once again, 4 Master Ridings come out from the side of El Paladinos. BrokenSlinky electing to go into a Chronos card, which reduces all cooldowns on the side of Barrack. Useful for a Barrack running that barricade build, more barricades for the team, potential healing coming out from that. But Foxycon telling the team what to do. I mean, they're Fernando. Their entire role is to hold down the point. They need to get on the point. They need to stick it down here. And it looks like they're going to as Diago dives in deep with the Grover ultimate, but is taken out almost immediately. LumpyEmu popping the Hexafire as well with the looks of things. Darkratos goes up into the air. Has the ultimate available still? No, was used in that last engagement. But now Crayon Gods are taking control of this engagement.
Yeah, it looks like they've got exactly what needs to be. Vape Nation up on that top. We talked about it last game, and now she's in the snipe area, and Foxycon and crew control this point, man. This looks like it's gonna go the way of Crayon Gods. And BrokenSlinky has something to say about that, though. He's like, hey, hold on, Randy, wait a second, I got some up here. Let me 1v1 them again. Let me 1v5 them. I took on Cassie. Can I take on the entire team? He uses a rocket boost there, but gets blast showered out of the way and gets taken out. Oh my goodness, it doesn't look good for El Paladinos here. It's 2 points away, and the objective goes the way of Crayon Gods. Their first point of the game. Vox, it's like they heard you, man. It's like they heard you. You know, I don't know what it was.
They all go up the point and they held it using that double shield combination there, as well as we've got to note out that the build for Ruckus is still that proximity build, but you can't underestimate Ruckus with proximity and Hexafire at close range. He did absolutely devastating to an enemy team. No ultimates being popped, but Diago looking to pick off Outliers, who are on the side of Crayon Gods, who are separated from the rest of their team. Vape Nation being brought very low, forced to run away, chased down by Yuji, who nets a kill for themselves. But all the while, the payload is being pushed further and further through. Foxycon gets the kill onto Darkratos, and Darkratos, that Androxus pick has been wiped off. El Paladinos looking to answer back now. But
nice ghost walk.
Foxycon, look at the payload, look where it is and how far it's getting towards the base.
Yep. I love these 1v1s. What Baconator and Xypo are doing, I love that. Like, yeah, 1v over by my old like respawn and let the payload keep on going, right?
Right.
And
it's all about the distraction.
Exactly. And Xypo is not getting the best of this either with that Ruckus close range fire and that emitter. But however, he gets the ghost walk. You know, it's like that's exactly what you want to be doing. Like, you know, distracting and buying yourself time. Xypo's and them are both kind of doing the right thing. When they started, Foxycon was pushing the payload. And so Xypo was kind of being distracted. But as the team showed up, it ended up being, you know, actually, I believe it was Ruckus Baconator who was getting. Oh, no, it was LumpyEmu who was getting distracted there because he was not pushing that payload with his team. So it ended up working out in both teams' favor.
Flank comes out from Dracamaur there, looks to poke around behind with the barrack. But that's not where you want a barrack in most of these engagements. They can get away with it briefly because it's Fernando with the shield, but you need that barricade to help immune some of the damage. Dracamaur, though, in a lot of trouble, pops the dome shield, trying to get away from Diago, does manage to get away, but is chased down by Yuji. Likely going to fall here. No, Dracamaur picking up a kill onto Yuji with the turret placed down at the last moment. And now it is once again El Paladinos on the back foot, trying to retreat. Diago being brought very low, does get picked up by Foxycon there. Turret going down, BrokenSlinky, the last line of defense. Can't stall it out 1 versus 5. There's too much damage here.
One thing that I noted about that was that Grover used his ultimate and as he was dying. That's not what they want. And the problem is that's not going to be up for the next point capture, especially because you know this game is going another round. So they lose a lot of potential pressure on that next point with that Grover ultimate, which you just need to run from because he used it as he was dying. El Paladinos not putting themselves in a good situation for this next round. I'm interested to see how this goes.
Although conversely, you could argue that Xypo there popping the Tempest, forcing Grover off the point, forcing Diago to Vine away, and then Vine back in as they realize the payload is going to be converted, was a poor use of Tempest, because whilst it did secure them the payload conversion, I think that would have happened anyway with the amount of damage they could have put out onto Grover without using that ultimate. And now that that AoE damage Tempest, that keystone ultimate for point capture and point contest, isn't going to be down and not available. On the other side of El Paladinos, though, looking at the scoreboard, Yuji has that ultimate available. Baconator has the Hexafire available. Darkratos has his accursed arm available. There's going to be so much damage from these ultimates available on the side of El Paladinos, and hopefully Dracamaur for them as well. Although Dracamaur is going to be sort of the last-ditch effort to survive this, as they're going to have that flamethrower turret up soon.
Right. Oh, man. Oh, man, it looks like there's 4 here, but they're getting so much barrage from the outer flanks with the barrack turret and Vape Nation basically taken out, but Yuji gets the kill onto Foxycon, so their main front line is not there. Xypo is still here fighting. Diago is still pressuring, though, and Xypo looks like he's going to have to ghost walk away. BrokenSlinky's in a bad spot. Dracamaur says, I got to go and just turret up. A really nice barrack turret there, forcing Diago to take a little bit of space. And Baconator, however, comes back inside the turret and takes out Dracamaur. LumpyEmu is looking like the only one left outside of Vape Nation. My problem is I didn't see Vape Nation move from that one spot that whole fight, and that goes the way of El Paladinos, and they win this first set in the first round against the Crayon Gods. I almost said El Crayon Gods. I guess that's the Spanish version of El Dios de Crayons, Crayones. But yeah, that goes the way of El Paladinos. Good game. We saw it coming all along, but unfortunately, you know, a mounted seemed like a comeback. Didn't exactly work. What are your thoughts going away from that game, Vox, and just the overall thoughts from both of those teams in those matches?
I think that the Fernando pick pulled out by Foxycon there, whilst it wasn't their downfall, it actually worked quite well in certain circumstances. I think that could be built around. However, what I would definitely like to see more of on the side of Crayon Gods is better ult timings. It seems like ults were thrown around willy-nilly in that engagement almost as soon as they became available, or when clutch situations were assumed to be happening, instead of saving them for the point contest. I'd also like them to be more aware of potential flanks from coming through, perhaps utilize better the Master Riding card, which we saw picked up by almost every member, and indeed every member for quite a few capture points of El Paladinos there. Taking a quick look at the scoreboard afterwards, anything you'd like to point out in terms of builds that you'd like to see perhaps adjusted going into future games?
Well, I'd love to see Ruckus because he's a very big key part of this meta. You kind of have to know, someone has to know how to play Ruckus on your team. But the reason I really think Ruckus brings a lot of value to the team is that emitter, that projector card that allows his shield effects to apply with I think it's a max 80% strength to his allies. And that's a huge deal. That kept a lot of Team El Paladinos in the fight for those extended, considering, look at the last fight we had, kind of an extended capture point fight where there's a lot of back and forth fire. I think the shields to all 5 members of that team on El Paladinos versus no shields at all from LumpyEmu going that more proximity, closer damage really hurt them. I think because, with Grover, you don't necessarily want to be close. You don't want to be up close with Grover. I just think it wasn't a great pick into what Diago and squad were running on El Paladinos. And I think the projector probably would have helped him much better in that situation.
Valid points all round, and with that said, we'll be getting into the first game of the second set coming up in just a moment. Taking a quick look at the brackets, we'll be spectating Ronin versus Team Elevate in just a moment. Don't go anywhere, we'll be back in a couple of minutes as soon as we're ready.